Hey guys, well, here we go back to Stirling because I am wanting to clock up some uses on that soap, figure out how much I use per shave by doing some math after 2 or 3 weeks of uses. Today it was 219 grams, and that's down from 223 from maybe 9 uses ago or something like that. So that's an approximate little computation we can do. Today I'm going to be using my Karve Christopher Bradley. I have shined that up a little bit with just some chrome polish and a rag. And I did that to the handle here, just by hand, just every once in a while doing a little bit. It didn't really take too much. And I think it looks nice. And I do anticipate allowing the patina to develop now. I let it go, and it was on the bead blasted finish, and I thought, hey, let's polish it and then let the patina come back. I'm not going to keep it polished all the time, probably, but I do like the patina on brass, so I'm looking forward to seeing how that develops. So I didn't do the plates because they didn't really kind of need it to me. Maybe I will sometime, but that's a little harder to do, such small surfaces with a rag, Today we're going to be using my new, to me, Shavemac for the second time. It's a Silvertip 2-band. It's a German company, and they've been making brushes for a while, I think. And I had a really good experience with this one, the previous shave, my first time with it. And so probably happen that way again. It's got a little bit, maybe more backbone than I might like, but since it's so early in the process, I think it's just going to open up and splay. And the tips are nice and soft, so I think I'm going to really enjoy it. I might move it away from that handle if I really enjoy the knot. The handle was surprisingly easy to use, and the toughest part of any operation with a brush is the second stage, the working up the lather stage. When you're loading from the soap bowl, any grip, any handle will work because it's a low stress operation. But then when you're working that lather, you're kind of cranking on it for a while there. And then you can get slippery feels because of the lather sneaking up and getting on the handle. And so then that's when a good ergonomic handle comes into play. But then when you're applying it to your face, about any handle shape will work. So it's really that second phase, that midpoint where you're working and stirring the lather. And for the most part, I was able to hold it up at this part here. The lather would gather around this guy. And so I think that worked out fairly well. Not quite as ergonomic as, say, something tremendous like this kind of shape, but, pretty workable. So we're going to play around with that a little bit. I'll be putting my Nacet blade. This is not my really old one, the one I've used about 205 times. This is one I've used about 2 or 3 times, 3. So this will be shave number 4. So we're going to put that in the Chris Bradley here. This is the brass version of the Chris Bradley, obviously, with the yellowing and whatnot. But so the blade fits there with the posts. The stainless steel Chris Bradley came out I don't know, several months ago, and it's on the wait list now, I think, because it was just so popular. And so a lot of people are selling these, like on the Reddit Shave Bazaar. So because they want to go for that stainless steel. And so if you want a great razor with a lot of base plate options, just because you can get the open comb as well as the solid bar here, watch out for those on the eBay. Well, probably not on eBay, but mostly the Shave Bazaar and probably some of those other buy-sell trade areas in certain forums, like maybe Badger and Blade or Damn Fine Shave or something like that. And you can pick one up at a good price. And it's a quality piece. I mean, come on, it's solid brass. It's going to last for ages and ages. And I think it's beautiful. I think it looks a little better than the stainless steel, personally. But that's obviously a subjective thing. So we've got the Nacet in the razor. I'm going to get my face a little wet. And now we will, here's the soap, Stirling R4L, which stands for Responders for Life. It's a benefit soap. It is scented with inspired by Tom Ford Gray Vetiver. And it's a awesome, classy, sophisticated, well, not too sophisticated. It doesn't have too many dimensions, but it's just kind of rich, but not thick, classy, and I really enjoy understated. I do enjoy it so much. All right, I am, to help the brush maybe absorb water a little faster, I used warm water this time to soak my brush in, shaking most of the water out. This one holds quite a bit. Oh, hey, you know what? Let's figure out how much this thing, well, let's do it at the end of the shave when this guy's really saturated with water, about as much as he could get. All right, so 7 seconds is what I've been getting away with my Stirling Finest Badger. This is a Finest as well. It's a 2-band, although Shavemac calls this one a Silvertip. Let's, just for grins, let's just go ahead and not do the 7. Let's do a 10. So the 10-second rolled around right there. And we'll see if this guy can whip up 3 passes of lather with just a 10-second load. And there we go. Doesn't look like a whole lot, but sometimes you don't need a whole lot. All right. Roger Quintero lather bowl. It's got the spines in there. A grippy flange on the bottom. Brush rest right there. Most importantly to me, the size. I think about 5 1/4, 5 1/2 inches interior. And then the inturned lip here. Keeps that lather inside. Really helps it to do that. I'm going to stir it for just a second, and then I'm going to add the water. This is hard water at this location. I'm going to go ahead and add 1 1/2 teaspoons because I know that it's going to take at least that. Start off slow so it doesn't slosh out. This one doesn't have quite the stiff, the bristles are not quite as stiff as the Stirling Finest Badger. And so it's possible this may not have picked up as much soap. However, that's why I went with 10-second route. With the Stirling, I can do 7 seconds. Now, look at this. Yeah, see, it didn't take too much, just a little bit of work. And we've got plenty of lather, I'm sure. Just had to kind of combine what was in the brush with the water. And let's go ahead. I believe, 2 1/2 teaspoons of water might be the right ratio for this load. But so now we've got 2 in it. One neat thing about Stirling, probably some other soaps too, as you're adding water, there'll be a point where you add 1/2 teaspoon of water and the lather just grows exponentially. The past 1/2 teaspoon of water didn't see nearly as much growth, and then you'll hit one and it, bam, it just explodes the quantity of the lather. It's just kind of the nature of some soaps, I guess. So I've used Milk Steak the last couple of days. Got that in. That's a new base from Declaration Grooming. If you're interested in that, back up and watched the last couple of days shaves. One with this brush and one with probably a Simpson Best Badger Duke 3. All right. This is an awesome looking lather, and I've got plenty of it, so that 10 seconds, not a problem. Oh, what a good scent. And look at that elasticity. That's what I want right there. I don't think I'm going to add any more water. I may have to add a few drops to the brush on the first page, the first pass, because that's just kind of what happens on the first pass with me sometimes. This is a little bit more laborious, holding the brush right in such a small area, because you don't have as much leverage. It's a little more tiring on the thumbs and the fingers, but it's definitely doable. I could reach down and grab a little bit more of it here. The fingers, of course, get soapy. Love Sterling. You get, for less than the price of many 4-ounce soaps, you get almost 6 ounces, and it usually lasts longer than some of those top tier soaps because they are softer and have post-shave ingredients kind of built in, and that leaves less room for soap. All right, about a 24-hour growth probably today. I do shove my brush down into the lather to make sure that the center of the knot gets plenty of lather. Nice soft feel. Enough scrub to do the job for sure. Backbone is not really, pushing my skin around very much until I start to get very little soap in the brush. And that's when that starts coming into play. So I just go back and get a little bit more lather. Possible when I rinse my face, I didn't rinse my goatee, so that could have stepped in and messed up my lather consistency a little bit. Yeah, good face feel with this. The backbone is keeping those soft tips on my face, so that's ideal. It's not as luxurious as some of the, other Silvertips, but this is early on, so it could really improve over time. Some badgers don't change too much, but sometimes they'll change within the first couple of weeks. As you kind of break them in, they splay open a little bit more. Yeah, so this lather's not all that thick, but you don't need too much thickness. I do like it a little thicker than this though. So, why did I pick the Chris Bradley razor when I haven't used it in a while? I've been using my Wolfman and a Rex that I recently got, and a Gillette Hybrid Tech, which is a pretty rare, really enjoyable razor. Well, an online friend recently messaged me today, and he said that he just placed an order for a Chris Bradley, and he ordered the B, C, and D heads after doing a lot of research, a lot of reading, and I think that's going to give him a great idea about what this razor is about. I might recommend, after he figures out where he likes to be, to get an open comb plate, and but I think he started with a solid bar, and so we're celebrating with, I'm going to use my Chris Bradley here. He had got the BCD, and so today's plate I have is the B, and I've got one of my favorite things to do is take a plate or an aggression setting or a razor that's in the mild area, and put a nice sharp blade in it, like a feather or something like that. The Nacets do really well for me as well, and so that's what I've put in here, a nice young Nacet. and so we'll shave with that. Now, I believe, if memory serves correctly, that the B is what Chris at Karve said was kind of just the medium range, and so I don't think he rates it necessarily as a mild razor. But the thing about the mild setting, mild base plate, but the thing about this razor is, look how closely it holds, clamps down on the blade near the top of the edge there, and then on the bottom it's really close to the edge. And what that means is consistency, solid feel. You don't get that chatter as it moves across the face with some of the other razors who hold the bottom only back here where this dark semicircle starts. And so you get a whole different feel, even with the more aggressive plates, that kind of thing. So even though the D might be kind of the mid-range, according to the manufacturer, I think it turns out to feel more like a mild experience to me sometimes. So let's do it in honor of my online friend. We've been talking about what razor it might match to his needs. Well, the Nacet sure is a great match for this razor. I'll tell you that. This feels great. A little bit of blade feel. And sometimes not even that. Sometimes you just feel the hairs moving, but you don't actually feel the edge of the blade. This is a terrific combo. Now, if he takes his B head, the base plate for the B, if he takes it and puts a Nacet in there, is he going to get the same feel that I'm getting right now? There's no way we can tell, because his face has different variables. Even if he uses this same soap, even if he uses a Stirling soap, you just don't know. So we'll see. Hopefully he'll report in and tell me how everything went. His beard may be thicker, he may have more hairs, his skin may be tougher or more sensitive. So that's just the subjective nature of this little hobby we have here. And rinse time. That was quick and comfortable. Okay, second pass. Again, gonna take the brush, just jam it in there, because this is kind of a dense brush. Get that now. See, that's a lot better. Now, if this brush starts to feel better on the third pass than it does on the first, that's a sign that maybe you need to soak it for a little bit longer prior to the shave. So this is a thin, wet lather, but it's bonding to the skin, giving me excellent glide on my face. Nice protection, I'm sure. Of course, we'll verify that at the end of the shave by looking at the closeness. Karve did come out with a little bit different handle. Maybe it has some bands here and here or something like that. So they may have more handle options by now. I bought mine kind of early on when they first came out. Glad I did. But I didn't have as many choices. Cross grain now on the second pass. Very smooth, very comfortable. One of the things I like about the Chris Bradley razor is that I can use the plates all the way from the lowest, AA, all the way up to D with comfort and a nice close shave. Whereas with my Rockwell, the one was just too mild to really even worry about using. The 5, I could use the 5, but it just felt too aggressive. I didn't want to use it very much. The 4, I could get away with, but I preferred the 2 or the 3 just for a nice comfortable shave. So that's 6 settings. I'm only able to use 2. But with the with the Chris Bradley, I was able to use a much wider spread. And so that's one of the reasons I pretty quickly sold my Rockwell 6S. All right, We'll rinse now. Now, because this lather is a little on the wet side, I dabbed my face dry with my towel. And so that'll absorb a little of the water here, and it looks like I'm going to have just enough soap. So I am really glad that I, with this brush, went the 10-second route. It could be that since I've used, this soap has been able to sit for about 3 or 4 days unused because I had my new milk steak in and all that, that it, you know, dried out a little, so then it needed more load time. That's a possibility. It could just be the difference in this having a little bit less backbone than the Stirling Finest. So it looks like I hit it just right. I definitely do have enough if I want to do some kind of touch-up pass. So in a sense, it's the perfect amount of lather, but I usually like to have a little bit more margin than this. Not quite have it be this thin during the third pass. And cross grain again. Against the grain, I just kind of get irritation and cuts. I could probably get away with it on my face, but to be honest, if I did that and got a baby butt smooth shave, I wouldn't be able to. I wouldn't have as much stubble to shave 24 hours later. So I actually enjoy the act of shaving more than having a super uber smooth face. I could go against the grain on my cheeks, probably not have a problem, but in my neck area it is a nightmare. All right, that's 3 passes. It looks like I got a great close cut, so really happy about that. We'll check about it in just a second and make sure. Yep, all I see is tips in my troll spot area, so that was an excellent combo between the blade and the razor for me. The pretty much perfect amount of lather left over. You know, like I said, I'd like a little bit more. But if I needed some more, let's see how much this would give me. Gentle squeeze, and that's a pretty good amount of lather. Could make that, definitely make that work. So yeah, kind of the perfect amount. Now, since we got the soap wet, it's possible that I could use this same setup tomorrow and maybe just do 7 seconds with this very same brush and have the same amount of lather. So the amount your soap dries, the amount of time your soap has to dry between uses can really determine how much you need to load the next time you use it. And we used 2 teaspoons of water in the lather. 1.5 was probably all I needed. So this was a 10-second load, and 1.5 probably would have been a better way to go. And I would have had a little bit more luxury, a little bit more creamy feel. But as you can see, I got the job done. You may have noticed a little bit of stuttering as I was shaving certain areas, especially right here. A little bit of, well, that's because my lather was just a little too wet. And so that's what happens sometimes. Gonna do some cleanup. I told you how much water, I showed you the lather. All right, smells great. I have some Reef Point Soap's Test Depth aftershave in my other room. That's what I'm going to throw on as part of my aftershave splash. I'm not going to do that right now, but that's just one that my wife enjoys, and I like it too, so I'm going to use that one. Now, if you find that sometimes an alcohol splash that's predominantly alcohol bothers you a little bit right after a shave, sometimes you can help. This is witch hazel, Thayer's unscented, and I like to spray it on my hand instead of letting a lot of it just kind of drip right through my fingers. So this has aloe and this one's alcohol free. Thayer's is not a high amount of witch hazel in the actual product, but it's mostly, I think, aloe, and so, but I think it's still a good product. It feels great on the face. It calms me down after a rough shave, especially nice in the summer when you don't need something quite as thick as maybe a balm. This kind of tonic is nice, and I like to also do it in this case when 10-15 minutes later I want to be putting on an alcohol splash, and so this can kind of condition and work on healing my face before it gets the harshness of the alcohol. Take a minute to talk about water inside your brush knots. It's something to think about, because it can cause some funk, some smells, and some mold if it's left there over time, and then that can degrade and wear away at your hair bristles, cause them to break off, things like that. And so you don't want that. Now, decades ago, it's very common to look on eBay or something and see a shaving mug with a brush halfway down in it, and the bristles are all hooked like that, because the person would just use it and then just leave the brush sticking down in the mug. Well, it's up to each person whether they want to do that. And I also think that that brush probably didn't cost too much. And whenever it would degrade enough to where they wouldn't want it anymore, you just pitch it and buy a new brush, you know. Whereas these days we're kind of looking at more quality pieces. And so what I do after the end of each shave with pretty much any type of brush I have, which is usually just boar or badger, I give it a good shake. Obviously I rinse it out in my bowl. I take my bowl and I tilt it halfway and I work it this way, because then the water can be spilling out as it's pouring in from the faucet. So I get kind of a good rinse action that way. And occasionally, obviously, I'll pour it out like that and then start over again. And then, so that's the way I get my soap out of my brush. Then I've got a lot of water in there. So I'll grab it this way and I'll sling it back and forth like that when my hand is down in the sink. And so that way it gets the water, slings a lot of the excess water out that way. Now at that point, what I do then is drop it on the towel. I'll take several sections, I'll just kind of up and down, and I'll turn it a little bit as it goes, then go to another section, then fold and go to another section, just so we keep getting it hit with a nice dry towel area. And so then I end up with something like this, pretty dry. And so then the inside part that's maybe a little bit more damp has some dryness to come out too, and then evaporate. And at this point, there's not really any water that's affected by gravity. There's only the water that's in the bristles themselves. And so it doesn't matter whether you hang it up on a stand, some kind of brush stand, or if you let it sit on its base like this. Doesn't matter at all. It'll dry the same speed. And then if you can use it this way for a while, even if you wanted to use the same brush every day. I did that for maybe a year with a certain brush. But ideally, get another brush, whether it's a cheap one or one of similar value as the one you enjoy, and go back and forth between the two of them. And that way it has enough time to dry between each one. So I definitely recommend that. Or if you can't afford two quality brushes, then you could, and there are some good badgers for 40 bucks, 30 bucks even. So you can definitely go that route. I don't think it's too expensive to bring yourself an alternative, whereas the Shavemacs are a little more expensive. And so that's one of the things I'm evaluating now is I'm comparing this with a $40 brush or a $30 brush to see if it's worth that extra money. And then after after it sits, then use it again. Good to go. All right, we will put this guy up here. So he felt really good today. When he starts to get low on lather, he starts to push my skin around. But that's no big deal because I'll then put some more lather on. I should generally have more lather to have on him, you know. And so that's not a problem at all. So I believe I'm liking him so far. Definitely have to do some comparisons. If he does kind of win out over some of my other brushes, then maybe I'll put him in a different handle, something like that. We'll see. So my friend who just has in the mail recently, and hopefully he'll get it in several days. Karve Christopher Bradley. This is what the B works well for me on the with the Nacet, pretty new Nacet blade. So I'm sure you're going to enjoy playing around with yours. Try, if you don't have a blade sampler, I definitely recommend that, because a blade, let's say you've got a Gillette Slim that you've been using for a while, and you figured out what blades work well with it. When you get this new razor in, all bets are off. Some of those blades that might work well with your Slim may also match your new razor, but it may not. So if you have a sampler, I'd recommend using that, putting all those blades through your new razor a few times each, just to kind of get the feel and see which ones are your favorites for the new razor. All right, my face feels great. I didn't have any weepers at all. That's a nice thing about a nice low gap like the B. Face feels awesome. Nice clay, nice shave. Not baby butt smooth, but just fine, for me at least. All right, I think we're good. Hope there was something here for you. And put another dent in the Stirling tub, and we'll keep on going. All right, now this is Sugar Daddy Shaves. You take care. Bye.